Alright. Here is a simple program related to running Flask in Python on Raspberry Pi 4. From Flask import Flask. App equals Flask underscore underscore name underscore underscore. Add app root slash def index. Return hello world. App run host equals 0.0.0.0. I shall explain it line by line. Line 1 from Flask import Flask. This line imports the Flask class from the Flask library. Flask is a lightweight web framework in Python, and this class is what you use to create your web application. Line 3, app equals Flask underscore underscore name underscore underscore. Here, you are creating an instance of a Flask application and storing it in a variable app. The underscore underscore name underscore underscore argument tells Flask where to look for resources like templates and static files. It also helps Flask understand whether this file is being run directly or imported. Line 5 add app root slash. This is a decorator that tells Flask what URL should trigger the function that comes right after it. In this case, the root slash represents the homepage, the root URL. So when someone visits your server's main address, Flask knows to run the next function. Line 6, def index. This line defines a function named index. This function will be executed whenever someone accesses the root defined just above the homepage. The name index is just a convention. It could be called anything, but index is commonly used for a homepage. Line 7, return hello world. This line specifies what the server should send back to the client, like a web browser. When someone visits the homepage, the server responds with a text hello world, which will be displayed in the browser. Line 9, app run host equals 0.0.0.0. This line starts the Flask development server. The host equals 0.0.0.0 setting makes the server accessible from any device on the network, not just the local machine. This is especially useful if you are running this on something like a Raspberry Pi and want to access it from another computer. Overall summary. This code creates a very simple web server using Flask. It defines a single root, the homepage at slash, and links it to the function on line 6. When a user visits that root, the function runs and returns the text hello world. Line 7, which gets displayed in their browser. Finally, line 9 starts the server so it can begin listening for incoming requests. In short, this is a minimal web application that serves a single page with a basic message. Great, now I shall explain this code slightly differently. I will explain it in terms of what the code is doing as related to HTTP. Rather, I shall reinterpret the code through the lens of HTTP, client-server communication, and how the web actually works behind the scenes. Line 1, from Flask import Flask. This line brings in the tools needed to create an HTTP server. In web terms, you are preparing your Python program to speak HTTP, which is the protocol browsers use to request and receive web pages. Line 3, app equals Flask underscore underscore name underscore underscore. Here you are creating a server application that will listen for incoming HTTP requests. This object, app, becomes the central web server that handles connections from clients, like Chrome or Firefox, and decides how to respond. Line 5 add app root slash. This line connects a specific URL path slash to a piece of logic in your server. In HTTP terms, when a client sends a request like get/http/1.1, your Flask app uses this root to decide which function should handle that request. It's essentially a rule in your server's routing table. Line 6, def index. This defines the function that will run when that HTTP request for / arrives. Think of this as the server-side handler for that endpoint. Whenever a client hits that URL, this function is executed to generate a response. Line 7, return hello, world. This line creates the HTTP response body. When the server replies to the client, it sends back an HTTP response that includes headers, automatically handled by Flask, and this string is the content. The browser receives it and renders it as plain text. Line 9, app.run, host equals 0.0.0.0. This starts a web server that listens for incoming TCP connections on a network interface. By using 0.0.0.0, you are telling the server to accept requests from any IP address, not just local host. This means other devices on your network can send HTTP requests to this server and receive responses. Overall summary, HTTP perspective. This code sets up a basic HTTP server that listens for incoming web requests. When a client, like a browser, sends a request to the root URL, / the server routes that request to a handler function, generates a response containing hello, world, and sends it back over HTTP. In essence, you've built a tiny web server that participates in the same request-response cycle that powers the entire internet.